Hi grade 10s, it's Ms. Thungaraj here, and today we're going to learn how to solve systems of equations using elimination. Please make sure you get your pencil and your paper so that you can do math with me while you're watching this video. I want to talk a little bit about yesterday's lesson. Yesterday we used substitution, and what substitution means is we replace the y with an expression with x's. That's what substitution means. With substitution, we replace things. When we use elimination, however, we're not replacing. What we are doing is we are adding or subtracting two equations to get rid of or remove one of the variables. So substitution is replacing an x or a y with an expression, and elimination is when we add or subtract two equations to remove one of the variables. And we're going to start by looking at this question from page 9 in the booklet. So we have these two equations, and I want to let you know that typically we use elimination when neither of the equations are y equals. And you can tell that when you look at these two equations, neither of them are y equals. So what I want you to remember is that when I have two equations and they have just a y in them, this means that I have one y here, and here I have negative 1y. And if you remember what it said in the last screen, it said that if you want to do elimination, you want to either add these two equations or subtract these two equations so that you get rid of or you remove one of the variables. Let's first try by subtracting these equations. If I were to subtract the equations, 3 minus 2 is 1x. 1 subtract negative 1 will give you plus 2y. And 5 subtract 0 gives you 5. By subtracting, did I remove any variables? No, I still have an x, I still have a y. So that has not worked for elimination. So let's try again. So instead of subtracting, let's add them. So I'm going to add them. I'm going to cross off what I have here. Okay, so if I have 3x plus 2x, that gives me 5x. If I have 1 plus negative 1, that gives me 0y. I don't need to write it down. And 5 plus 0 gives me 5. Here, when I did the question incorrectly, when I subtracted, I didn't remove any variables. But when I added them, look, I have removed the y. I only have x. So this is a great first start, because now look what I can do. I can find out what x is. X is equal to 5 divided by 5. X is equal to 1. So that means if I want to know the solution to the system of equations, I know it would be the point where x is 1 and y we need to determine. So we know the x is equal to 1. What I need to do, just like I did in substitution, is I need to put the x is equal to 1 into one of the other equations. Now, my dog's barking. Please try your best to ignore her. She's very cute though. There she is. Hi, Kylo. Hi, Kylo. You're a good girl. Maybe I'll get you a bone. As always, I'm going to use Desmos just to check to make sure my answer makes sense. And when I enter those two equations into Desmos and check, it does say that the two lines should touch at x is equal to 1. Now what we need to do is we need to do some algebra to get the y is equal to 2. Okay, she has her bone, so hopefully she'll be good for the rest of this video. I'm going to take this x is equal to 1, and just like I did in substitution, I'm going to put it in either one of the equations to find the y. And I think I said before that I always like to use the easier equation. I feel like this one's easier because it has a 0 on this side. So I'm going to write down 2x minus y, or minus 1y, is equal to 0. I know that my x is equal to 1, so I'm going to cross off this x and put a 1 here. 2 times 1 is equal to 2, minus 1y is equal to 0. I want to get the y all by itself, so I'm going to move the plus 2 to the other side. 0 minus 2 is just minus 2. And then I need to, and often people forget that If you have a y here with a negative, you have to get rid of the negative. You can't just leave it there. So that means y is equal to negative 2 divided by negative 1, which is equal to 2. And so I'm going to take that 2, I'm going to move it across my page, and I'm going to put it right here. And you will see that that is the same answer that we got with Desmos, so we know we are correct. Let's try this second question together. So what we need to do when we're using elimination is we want to either try to add the equations or try to subtract the equations to remove or eliminate either the x or the y. So we're going to do that together right now. So we're going to make sure we don't forget that there's actually a 1 here. So let's first try by adding these two equations. If I add them, 1 plus 2 gives me 3x. 4 plus 5 gives me 9y. And 2 plus minus 2 gives me 0. So we can tell that neither the x or the y have been eliminated. Let's try subtracting them. Okay, so I'm going to, instead of adding, I'm going to subtract. My husband's getting the dog another bone. Okay, so I'm subtracting. 1 minus 2 gives me negative 1x. 4 minus 5 gives me negative 1y. And 2 subtract negative 2 gives me 4. That doesn't seem to work either because I still have x's and I still have y's. Elimination doesn't seem like it's going to work for this question. So there must be something we're missing, and I'll explain to you what you need to understand. The reason why in this equation over here, elimination worked was because in front of the y, there was a 1 in front of them. Sure, 1 was positive and 1 was negative, but those were the same numbers. If I look at this equation, the 4 and the 5 are different, and the 1 and the 2 are different. Elimination is only going to work if you have a coefficient, that means a number, in front of the x or the y that is the same. Okay, so there must be something we can do to solve the problem, and I'll tell you what we can do. What we can do is we can change one of the equations so it matches with the other one. For example, if I took this whole equation and I doubled it, if I doubled the whole equation, look what I'd have. I would have 1x times 2 is 2x. 4 times 2 is 8y. 2 times 2 is 4. You can do anything you want to an equation as long as you do the same thing to both sides. So I've doubled the left side and I've doubled the right side, and that's perfectly allowable when you're doing algebra. Okay, now we notice that we've got something that's much better. We've got these two equations, and they both have the same coefficient in front of the x. So now we need to decide, should I add those two equations or should I subtract those two equations to do elimination, to remove one of the variables? If I do 2 plus 2, that gives me 4. 8 plus 5 gives me 13. That's not eliminating anything. But if I were to subtract, 2x minus 2x gives me 0x. It's eliminated. 8y minus 5y gives me 3y. 4 subtract negative 2 gives me 6. So that means my y is equal to 6 divided by 3. My y is equal to 2. So we know that if we are doing the solution to the system of equations, the second number would be 2, and we want to find the x, the first number. And I've just checked with Desmos. When I plot those two lines using Desmos, I see that they do intersect at y is equal to 2. And now I just need to do a bit more algebra to get the x is equal to negative 6. We know that y is 2. And we know that we started off with this equation and this equation. And I want to put the y is equal to 2 into either this equation or this one. It doesn't matter which one you pick. You could have actually picked the one we changed as well. I'm going to pick the first one though, because the first one looks like it's the easiest. It's got no negatives, it's got 1x, it's got 4y, it's got a 2, looks nice. But you could have used any of those three equations. I'm going to pick the first one though, and I'm going to take my y is equal to 2 and I'm going to put it into that equation. So here is the equation. I'm going to cross off the y because I know that the y is equal to 2. These two are right next to each other, so I'm multiplying. So I have 1x, which is just the same as x, plus 8 is equal to 2. I'm going to do some algebra. So I get 2 subtract 8, and that gives me that x is equal to minus 6 or negative 6. So that negative 6 is going to go right here. My x is negative 6, my y is 2, and that is the solution to the system of equations. And today I'm going to leave you with just one question to try on your own. It's from page 11 of the workbook. And the nice thing about this question is this is one of the examples that's already done in the workbook. So what I would like you to do is I would like you to just look at the question. I want you to try to solve the question using elimination, and then you can check your work by looking at page 11 from the booklet. If you have questions, send me your emails. I'll be on Google Meet this afternoon and I'd be happy to help you. Leave me a comment in the comment section so I know whether you've watched this video today or not. Have a great Tuesday.